the importance of writing books, and why should why should more people be writing? So in this session, Rahul will be in conversation with Haritosh Srivastav, Mr. Ashwini Bhatnagar, and Miss Aanandika Sood. So over to you, Rahul.
Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you so much. I request Tech Master to please spotlight the speakers. Yes. Welcome to the next session. And this session is very interesting. Why do we need, or why do people need to write books? And we have three people on board. We have Ashwini Bhatnagar ji, we have Parito Srivastava ji, we have Aanandika Sood. So let me introduce one by one. Aanandika Sood has been into writing copy since she learned to read and spin stories. She has worked with national newspapers, both Hindi, Dainik Bhaskar, English, the Indian Express, among others, and served as public relations officer with the Chandigarh administration. She writes about parenting, books, and life at her blog, aanandika.blogspot.com. Glad to have you on team, Aanandika ji.
Thank you, Rahul ji. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Ashwini Bhatnagar ji. He is a journalist, author, satire writer, and a documentary filmmaker. He has worked in editorial leadership positions in newspapers like Times of India, The Tribune, Sunday Mail, The Illustrated Weekly of India, etc. He has also been channel head of 2 news channels. He has written 14 books. 14 books, my friends, 14 books. The Lotus Years, Political Life in India and a Time of Rajiv Gandhi was released to rave reviews in 2020. The biography of actress Meena Kumari, starring Majabeen as Meena Kumari, released in 2019, is being made into a film. We have here dignitaries, my friend. TV series rights of the 2 of his other books, Agent 304 and Operational Khatma, have been acquired by filmmakers. He is currently being commissioned to write Kashmir Politics and House of Abdullahs and Amrita and Victor, a taboo love story. It is based on the life of painter Amrita Shergill. Ashwini directed, written, and produced 4 documentaries. If you have a story, an idea, please do reach out to him. He was formerly professor and dean faculty of mass communication at SGT University, Gurgaon, and currently senior distinguished fellow, Sanrachna Center for Research and Innovation. The Lotus Years Political in India to the time of Rajiv Gandhi was shortlisted in the category of Best Non-Fiction Book of 2020 at Tata litfest. Sir, it's our pleasure to have you here on this panel. Thank you for being on the panel, sir. Last but not the least, we have Parito Srivastava. He is an IT project manager with 14 years of industry experience. He hails from small town, bigger dreams. He hails from small town, Jaunpur in the state of Uttar Pradesh, India. Working with Tata Consultancy Services, he is currently deputed to UK, serving a top pharma customer. He loves to mentor and coach young professionals and students in their endeavors to make their journey better and beautiful. He's a distinguished Toastmaster, the highest education in Toastmasters. Only 1% of Toastmasters around the world achieve it. He's a passionate storyteller and an award-winning speaker, having won accolades in India, US, and UK. He loves volunteering and giving back to community. He's a very down-to-earth person. He writes, he's a YouTuber, and through his channel, he brings on new, captivating, inspiring content, including inspirational interviews, book reviews, vlogs. He runs a podcast, Small Town, Bigger Dreams. In June 2021, my friend, this year, he published his first book, ebook, coming to be physical form as well, Small Town, Bigger Dreams, which was Amazon bestseller, among top 12 bestsellers for a week on Amazon. He loves to mentor and coach young students and professionals. Welcome, all the speakers. It's great to have you on the panel. And I feel I have no question to ask you. Seeing your introduction, I feel I'm done. So, as we have to go on, so let me start. Let me shoot a question to Ashwini sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, why do we need to write more books? Very first, very simple question. Why? Why we need to write books?
As long as there is a need to hear stories, read stories, there is need to write books, because books are the primary source of stories. We had this old tradition where the Shravana thing was more important when oral recitation of stories was there. But now more and more people are getting into the reading habit. And from the reading habit, they are getting into the multimedia space now. So we are witnessing, in fact, we are at a very crucial threshold of the industry wherein there is a transition from the written text to multimedia. Most of the stories that we write today fulfill this hunger to fantasize, to dream, to hear about of the lives of others, to hear about distant lands, customs, religions, people's lives. So this curiosity propels writing. A writer is also curious. It is not always that I write my own story. Many of the writers that we know of, they haven't written about themselves much. What they have written about is other people they have met, they have fantasized, they have talked to, they have lived with, they have experienced. So gathering all that information together and putting it in the form of a cohesive story is an art form, and that art form has lived down the ages. It is not going to end any soon. We need to write more books. The books that we have as of now are not sufficient. Of course, ever since the advent of desktop publishing, writing a book and publishing it has become a lot more easier. It wasn't so when I started off. Okay, now what I need to do is just go on, go to Google or some other platform, upload my book, and it is done. It was not so easy a few years ago. But since this has happened now, we have a variety available to us. It is the gatekeeping which was being done by the publisher or the critic. That gatekeeping has gone. So, in a way, writing, storytelling has been truly democratized now. It is the grassroots which are speaking. There is no gang of writers sitting up there and pushing their own kith and kin into the field, applauding them. Like they used to always say, and I still believe it is said, that there is a privileged group of elite writers. They write, they get the best publishers, they get the best agents, they get the best book deals, they get the best film rights. No, it's not. The nexus has been broken. If you write what people want to read, and what do people want to read? People want to read about something which is close to them, universal feelings. Our story ultimately has to touch hundreds and thousands of hearts. It is not something, I was telling somebody that the first time I wrote my own love story and thought it was a great book. I was 16, I was standing there, then I met her in the canteen, and then I did this. I thought it was a great story, 10 years down the line, somebody advised me, just keep it. Okay. Few years later, I read it again, and my first reaction was to tear it into pieces. And it actually tore it into pieces. It was about good 40,000 words. The reason was very simple. It was so personalized that it did not appeal to me after a particular point in time. So a good story is a story which reaches out to a universal audience. It touches a universal chord. I'll give you an example. Love Story by Eric Sale. Now that's a boy meets a girl, some smart dialogue is happening. Okay. And at the end of the story, the girl dies and the guy is devastated, right? It's so simple. But as you read it everywhere, it touches us at a point in your own soul, in your own heart. You are never at Stanford. You are never at Harvard. Those guys were there. They were underage. They had a different culture, but somehow it resonates. Another example I give you that Heer Ranja. I have read Heer Ranja in total. It's a huge book. It's in Punjabi. I don't read Punjabi. I'm not a Punjabi. I understand a bit of Punjabi, but I can't read Punjabi or जो उनके ठेठ Punjabi शब्द हैं, I don't understand them. I read a translation, and I tell you, it was Heer and Raja lived 200 years ago, but it resonated with me because the emotion was universal. So we need to write more and more, tell stories which are right next to us. This is how books are also a medium of information. They tell you of the places, of things which I may not have visited, never seen, but you bring your experience of those things, of those people, of those cultures to me. So my short point is that no, still not enough books are being written. There should be more books.
Thank you, sir. Your story resonated so much that my first story was a love story. Still unpublished, but yeah, got picked up by my literary agent, soon to come next year, our agent, Suhail. But over years, edited and no more a love story now. After 12th draft, it's not a love story anymore. But yeah, we need to share our story, maybe the different version. Now moving forward, we have Parito Srivastava. Like as Ashwini sir mentioned very well, writing entails reading. So I remember I attended so many litfest, and where Kulpreet Yadav, my mentor, he mentioned, before you write first book, read at least 100 books. So what's your take on this? Like writing will help more reading, or it's like reading more will make you a writer? So what's your take on it?
Thank you so much. First of all, I feel so empowered, part of this esteemed guest. I don't know how I deserve this. Whether writing requires a lot of reading, I think that is personal. Some people might read a lot of books. I do read at least 15 to 30 minutes every day out of that busy schedule, because I want to feel like I'm living and enriching my life. And my genre, like non-fiction, I love to read about different non-fiction of different authors, and that's how I learn about that. And in my book also, I think some of those the methodologies, the style would have come, if I say. And I think when you read more, I think you tend to become more analytical, to say. I'm an engineer, so I tend to use those engineering words. But I'm an engineer, and I never thought I'll become a writer or author, per se. But the more I started reading, I thought maybe I have a story that I can do. Maybe I have a collection of the principles that I can share with people. I come from a very small town, as you said. Maybe there are other people out there who are still on the same phase, moving or transitioning from small town to bigger teams. And maybe my experiences, my principles that will help them also to enrich their life. So I definitely feel that reading is one very important part if you're aspiring to be a writer. But I think more importantly, it's about your message. Somebody who was trying to learn about writing reached out to a coach, and he said, no, whatever I'm trying to put in, it's already there in the word. And the coach has only one answer, that no, whatever you want to write is already there in the word, but it's not your experience over there. It's not your story over there. If you put in your story, maybe it will resonate with your audience. So that's what learning, reading, and also putting your stories out there in the word, I think that is the need of the hour.
Thank you, Haritosh. Thank you. Now moving on to Aanandika ji. As per study, 40 to 50% people are using social media accounts, and on an average daily they are using 2 to 3 hours, sometimes extreme 4 hours per day on social media handles. So in this age of fast food society, do you think writing habits are need of the hour?
Thank you, Rahulji, for the question. And yes, I do think that writing will and always has been the need of the hour, so as to say. And that's saying that, I am in fact reminded of a quote by Maya Angelou when Ashwini sir was telling his own story, that there is no bigger agony to bear than having a story untold inside of you. So I think as we live, as we breathe, as we experience, I think it is very important somehow to bring it into a perspective. And there's not a better tool than writing, whether you write on your mobile phone in a notes application, or whether you express yourself by writing a social media post. I think we are already doing it, via a comment on a social media post. So writing our own post, like I said. So yes, we are writing, and writing is and always will be the need of the hour, of the day, of a lifetime.
You see, Rahul, you mentioned social media. When I use the word writing, it is not just any writing. Writing a letter, writing a report. For example, he's an engineer. He will be writing a report. She is in PR. She must be doing press releases, etc. That's not writing. Writing, when I refer to writing, writing is actually distilled thought. When your thought process is fully distilled, then drop by drop, it comes down and in a written form. That is writing. And how do you distill your thoughts? We speak a lot. We hear a lot. That everything gets into your mind. That is the factory. And certain things are thrown away. Certain things are some experiences, some sights, some sounds, some other things. They remain in the mind. And you churn over them, you chew over them. And over a period of time, a story emerges out of that. Now, everybody has a compelling need to tell his own story. But until the story is distilled in your mind, and as Ananta said, it needs to have a perspective. What perspective do you give it? Okay, there is no point in writing a story. Like I said, I in my own, when I started my writing, I am a journalist, so I write every day. I write every day, and I can't tell you what all I write, from crime to politics to any goddamn thing, So for me, it is just a sort of a reflex action. But that reflex action is within a particular format. Acha, I want to write an edit, 450 words. It has to be written like this. You do it, done. A ground report, you go to a site, you see something happening, you come back, you report, intro, khatam. Now, but that are only pieces of information. They are pieces of experience. Now, if I were to write about a journalist, then those things are not important. What is the important point is how that journalist goes about doing his things and we form an overarching view of what the profession is all about and what the character of the main guy in that given context, how it comes out of it. So what is the bone of the story? What is the arch of the narration? Those are techniques. They come to most of us have this intuitively. But many of us need to learn those techniques. Okay, now great writers like Noypaul or Salman Rushdie, they didn't have to go to a writing school to learn all that. Or it came to them intuitively, they could write it. But Sachin Tendulkar, for example, I can do all the coaching I want to do in the world, but I can never get anywhere there with Sachin. Okay, so that is the intuitive part is important. Another thing which I feel very strongly about, because I get a lot of stuff from people who want to, have comments. This is what I've written. What is your comment on this? And most of us want to hear only good things. The idea is, I have written something that has to be very good, and if you think that there are certain problems with it, only yesterday somebody called me up and said, "What? This is a short story I've written. What do you think of it?" I said, "Sorry, I will not read it." So why? I said, "Because there's no point. आपने लिखी है, बहुत अच्छी लिखी है. लेकिन मैं जब when I say then I would speak within a particular format. Okay, उसमें there are various things which when you evaluate something, there are various sides, and you wouldn't want to since so the excitement of being a writer is different from being an actual writer. I am reminded I met Sir Noypal about 10-15 years ago at a literary conference, and I asked him, how do you write? He said, "What a stupid question." I said, "Look, I am a journalist, so I have this freedom to ask stupid questions. So how do you write?" He said, "Why do you ask that?" Again, he said, "Why do you ask that?" I said, "At times I feel it is a very painful process." He said, "Why are you saying it's painful?" I said, "Because it's perfect. When I read one sentence, I can see the pain you have gone through in picking up that right word, that right tone, that right construction, the right imagery." And I quoted a few examples for him and said, like, for example, when you're going on a train journey and when your train passes a station, you see a lot of things. For example, crowds. Now, the way Naipaul has described those crowds on the railway platform while his train is moving, going at a fast speed, and then linked it to India. India being a huge country with a population huge. That's marvelous. So he said, "Look, Ashwini, what I do is I wake up at 9:30 in the morning. Then I have my breakfast. Then between 11 and 1:30, I sit down and write only 500 words. Then I go to sleep. Then when I wake up at 5 o'clock, I tell my wife to read it aloud to me. Because writing is music. If it doesn't sing to you, then it is no point writing.
So you married your love, or like?
Sorry?
Like you mentioned, you wrote a story when you were 16, and I hope you married the girl you love.
Never married the girl you love.
You wrote a story on love, your first crush.
Sorry?
Hello?
Boliye?
I'm not audible.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for maybe my voice didn't go through. My point is I can echo when I had my drafts ready, 5-10 drafts I wrote, and my editor mentioned, "Scrap. I cannot read beyond one line. Scrap." What is saying? I have invested years, 5 years. It's scrap. Scrap it. Scrap it. And I took a year off, writer's block, and came back again to write again. So sometimes pain is needed. You say pain is beautiful. And where my next question is to Harito, when you have a pain inside, like a lost love or something you have missed in your life, or you want to achieve something, like you are from a very small village like me, does writing help you heal yourself? Like you pour your heart out and heal yourself through writing. Is that the way? What's your take on it?
Yeah, thank you, Rahul, for that beautiful question. I would say yes, definitely. As a small towner, no, I wanted to study in a good big convent school. I never get a chance. I wanted to compete with those high convent English educated people. But when I went to an engineering college, I thought I was probably lacking, even though I thought I was good in studies, but I was not at that level. So there was this imposter syndrome, that the famous term I had in there, and it has to come out somewhere. Though I have told to many people, but no, I thought if I am struggling with this imposter syndrome, others might also be struggling, and there might be other stories. Story I remember when I was a kid. I went to one of my relatives' place, and I was playing there. And there was this aunt came and he said, no, he's studying in Hindi medium. Don't talk to this guy. And I felt so belittled because just because I'm studying in a regional or my mother language school, I shouldn't be talking to other convent educated kids. How demeaning that was. So that was inside, and that has to come out to people.
You have been saying this, and I beg to ask you this question. What is a small town? Because, and what do you speak good Hindi? You are from Jaunpur. Have you picked up Urdu from there? I am also from a small town. Have you heard of a place called Saharanpur? Have you heard of a place called Manmad? Jhansi?
Yeah.
I'm from there. But when I was in Manmad, I picked up Marathi. When I was in Chandigarh, I was working with the Tribune. I picked up Punjabi. And since I belong to Lucknow, I write in Hindi. In fact, so I'm not ashamed of it. When people tell me that you are not from a convent school, I said, come on, speak in Hindi or speak in Punjabi. I can speak, but problem is that we can neither speak in Hindi, nor speak in Punjabi, or nor in English. The imposter syndrome comes in when we are trying to, I don't think anything, in fact, today, as of today, I'm telling you, I'm in the research field. So I can tell you, everybody is looking for a guy who can write in Hindi. And for the last 40, 50, 45 days, I have interviewed at least 150 candidates and asked them to translate a simple sentence in Hindi. They're from Hindi medium. And they have not been able to do it. And everybody comes and says, "मैं तो छोटे से गांव का हूँ. आपने वहाँ सीखा क्या?" Jaunpur is a very rich place. I've been to Jaunpur. I've been to Jaunpur University. It's a great university. And I know the rich cultural heritage which Jaunpur has. So look, it's a very, very, when I go to the US, I may be convent educated, but I can't speak English like them. My daughter-in-law keeps asking me, what are you saying? I can't follow you.
Oh, we have two people from small town. They have achieved bigger dreams.
I think I am a good person who should button here. Why? Because once again, a very small town in Himachal Pradesh. And secondly, being a mother, I can absolutely understand from where Haritosh is coming. Not convent educated, but decently well educated from an English medium school. And my children, I am in Calcutta, so my children go to a fairly decent school. And in a neighborhood, my daughter was, I think, 6 or 7 years old. And we are basically a Hindi speaking family. And certain Bengali family told her not to come to their house because she would speak in Hindi. And she's very fluent in English as well. So she came back, and that is why I say that I can understand where Haritosh is coming from. And she wasn't really heartbroken because she knows that she can speak in Hindi as well as English. And I would like to take the credit here for maybe bringing her up this way, that this really did not shatter her confidence or anything, but yes, it impacted her that why wouldn't somebody want to allow their children to play with me just because I speak a certain language. So I think more and more children need to be told rather than children. जैसे पिछले session में in fact बात हो ही रही थी, we adults need to unlearn a lot of biases. So it's not about आप कहाँ से आ रहे हैं या आप किस भाषा में बोल सकते हैं. It's about your confidence. And as a child, I don't know Haritosh कितने साल के रहे होंगे, but as a child it does impact you. Having said that, a language, I write in English, but I think I love Hindi too much for it to matter, in the sense कुछ लोग होते हैं उनके sentences वो English में सोच के they reproduce it. I think in Hindi and then reproduce in English. So I think it's a very personal thing. And another thing that Ashwini sir was talking about, which I want to correlate with this, Naipaul ji ki aapne description ki baat ki. Personally, I haven't read his any of his works, but I'm sure we all have that one author we resonate with so much. And why I think that happens is because of our own lived experience. The times that you are probably talking about, those train journeys, ekdam se station ka nikal jana, guzar jana, maybe a child who's never sat in a train, aajkal ke bacche who always sat in a AC car and traveled by air, or traveled in first class, and I'm talking about a certain privileged class, of course, they will never be able to understand that. They will not be able to that feeling that probably Naipaul wrote very well about, and that echoed with you. They will not be able to grasp it.
No, you are misunderstanding. It's not about the feeling. You misunderstand. It's not about the feeling. It's how he relates. How he is talking about India.
I agree. No, I'm not just saying. No, I'm not just saying that it is about the feeling. But what I'm saying is that what resonates with you has to do a lot with the lived experience that you've had.
No, the language. The language.
Rahul, I'd like to respond to what was discussed here.
Sorry?
What I said was, when I was a kid, I'm not saying I'm ashamed of where I am from. First of all, I wanted to clarify. ठीक है, मैं हिंदी भी बोल सकता हूँ, ठीक है, and I'm very proud. मुझे बहुत गर्व है, मैं जौनपुर से हूँ, मुझे बहुत गर्व है. इनफैक्ट मेरी बुक में एक पूरा चैप्टर है where you should not forget your roots, and I am proud of. मैं हिंदी से हूँ, मैं हिंदी बोल सकता हूँ, बात कर सकता हूँ. बात जो आनंदिका जी ने भी कहा कि एज अ स्मॉल किड, एक छोटे बच्चे को जब ये बोला जाता है कि तुम एक हिंदी मीडियम से पढ़ते हो, तुम इन बच्चों के साथ ना रहो, क्योंकि ये तो अच्छे पढ़ने वाले हैं, इनका करियर बहुत अच्छा होने वाला है, ये बहुत हो जाएंगे. और उस जमाने में भी डॉक्टर इंजीनियर का ही था, एंड मुझे ऐसे देखा जाता था जब कि तुम तो कुछ कर नहीं सकते हो लाइफ में. एंड ऐसा मेरे साथ के रिश्तेदारों एंड इन लोगों ने कहा. तो जब एज अ किड, जब आप क्लास 8th 9th 10th में पढ़ रहे हो, ऐसा अगर आपको कोई करता है, उस टाइम पे अगर कोई आपको गाइड करे कि नहीं ऐसा नहीं है, तो इसके लिए बेटर होगा. एंड दैट इज व्हाट my point was. I am very, very proud of, and let me put it really right here, I'm very, very proud of, and I tell it everywhere that I'm proud to be a Jaunpuri. It's supposed to be the capital when there was Shershah Suri, so, and it's known for Muli, Makka and other things. So I'm very proud of, and I go on and talk about in whatever country I go about. But the point here is at different stages of life, you may not experience the feeling that you are experiencing now. In fact, after a few years, when I had got a job, one person came who had actually forced his CV to say he's from Ghaziabad or Delhi, not a Jaunpur, and he got a good lesson from me. The point is कि अलग-अलग समय पे आपका perspective change होता है, and at times we need support from somebody senior, somebody mentor said, no, you are on the right track, and you are doing the right thing. Don't worry about what the naysayers are saying.
So I think Haritosh with his writing would want to be in that mentor space, ताकि कल को अगर किसी के साथ ऐसा हो रहा हो, somebody is going through that, they have a reference point कि this is not the only truth, ऐसा भी हो सकता है, and you can be an engineer working in USA and doing very well both in Hindi and English.
I'll tell you something very interesting. You guys have this problem. I had another problem when I was 20. I had as many white hair. So every girl used to tell me that, oh, I'm not going out with you. People think I'm out with my father. So this was, I could speak English, I could talk in English, I could walk in English, I could drink in English, I could speak in Hindi. But the girls used to say, यार तुम्हारे साथ खड़े होते तो लगता है अपने डैडी के साथ खड़े.
अब सर वही पर्सपेक्टिव की बात आ जाती है. Somebody would say salt and pepper. Wow, I prefer.
Ultimately, all this shaming continues. If you have your confidence in you, then you will always succeed. Like you have succeeded, Aditya has succeeded, Rahul has succeeded, all of us have succeeded. Confidence is the key. If you think that, what is your core competence? It is not language, it is engineering. What is my core competence? I cannot survive without a language because my core competence is communication. Okay, so the needs are different. I write in Hindi. When I go to a function, I ask people, you want me to speak in Hindi or in English? Because when I speak in Hindi, then I don't mix English with it. Or English, I don't speak in English. And when I'm speaking in English, then I don't bring in Hindi. Okay, so the point is, we realize the true core competence and we go ahead with it. Even as a kid, all of us knew. You knew that you had it in you to become an engineer. I knew when I was in class 6 that I did not have it in me to become an engineer. हमें तो fail to रहना था. So my father told me, you'll never become a doctor, you'll never become an engineer. you will never become anything good. Why didn't you become an IAS officer? अच्छा ठीक है, कल आर्ट्स लेकर पढ़ाई करो, जब MA हो जाएगा तो IAS का इंतजाम दे दे. That's sort of a thing. So, coming back to the topic that we have, why do we need books? It is about sharing, experience sharing. Why do we need more books? Because we are so intimately connected in this digital age that experience sharing has to happen at a very fast pace. The pace has gone up. Our lives have become more connected. So the storytelling has to be more connected too. It can take the shape of small bits or long forms, short forms, or even you have those WhatsApp stories, 4-word stories, 2-line stories, or big stories like an epic, like what people like Rushdie or Vikram Seth right. So they never end. Like Vikram Seth writes 1,000 pages. Okay, but that's all. But every little bit is important. When we share our experience on Facebook or on Twitter, that is also storytelling. But it is not writing. It is writing. It is experience sharing. Okay, because you just say aaj aisa hua, or this is a bit of information that you share. So my issue is, and what Rahul said at the very beginning, do we need more books? Yes, we need more books. This is just not enough. I think people like Mr. Srivastav or Ms. Sood, they need to write more books. Rahul, you need to complete your own book, get on to the next one, write a few dozen.
Means we have to move on, let it go. Go with the flow, right? So, sir, I have an open question to all the panelists. In this time where we have Amazon, Netflix, okay, binge watch karte hain. Okay, we have 1 hour, 2 hours. I'm home. So, how do you push people or your friend? Okay, don't do binge watching. Better write a book. It's an adventure. So, what a 1 line, 2 line, or 3 line, how you would convince your friend? Just I'll give one turn to everyone. How would you convince your friend, your any family member? Don't go for binge watching Amazon, Netflix, any OTT. Write a book. Just it's an adventure. So yeah, I will start with Mrs. Sood. Yeah.
I don't think I would force or get anybody to do anything that they wouldn't. Like I said at the very beginning, that when there is a story within you, when there is a story inside of you, it just drives you crazy. So like Rahul ji or like Ashwini ji, I too had a love story. So, and I started writing it when I think some 10 years back or even more than that. And it kept, it stayed in my drive for forever. And then there came a point, and Ashwini ji jaisa bata rahe the, I showed it to an editor I had earlier worked with, and he said, you're too full of yourself, तुम्हारे सिवा कोई नहीं इसको पढ़ने में interested होएगा. And when over the 10 or 13 years that it stayed with me and I thought of revisiting it, I realized that it was actually a piece which would not interest anybody, because it just had my life story. And why would anybody be interested in me? And I absolutely agree with Ashwini sir when he said that it has to have an emotional connect, which is universal in the nature. So I had that connect, but the story did not have that expression. So sir, when you're saying that writing bit of it comes into play here, and then I think I rehammered the whole thing, cut it into half of it, and from a novel it turned into a novella, and then I had the courage or maybe the persuasion to publish it, to bring it out. So Rahul ji, to answer your question, I do not think I would want to tell anybody. I am a great believer in the power of reading and writing. I would tell them to go read instead of watching Netflix or any other medium. But being a storyteller myself, I have all the respect and love for all forms of storytelling. So no, I will not force anybody to go and write unless there's a story bubbling inside of them and it wants to come out. And if this is some person who's always talking about that story and not writing about it, maybe then I would be the person to give it a push. You should do this rather than just sit and watch TV. You have that story. And of course, then fine tuning it. There is so many stages to writing it. I'm
Just
sure
pour it
that
out.
would be a
Just
journey.
pour it out.
Yeah, but you must pour it out if you feel so emphatically about something. Yes, then maybe I would come into the picture. Otherwise, no.
What's your take, Haritosh ji? What's your take, Haritosh ji? Like, will you push or like, or will you motivate or inspire or like have a gyan or like, what would be your way?
Thank you, Rahul ji. Do you think Generation Z or YZ will take a gyan from anyone that you should do things? I don't think so. I can inspire them. I can inspire them to read probably more. And that's what I typically do when I'm reading a book. I try to take a screenshot, a picture of the book. If I find some enticing story or some life lesson, I put it on my status or other places. Some people respond. Most of them don't even care. So I can probably inspire people to read, and if they are inspired enough, they, like Aanandika ji said, if they have something which should come out and they're feeling the urge, then they should become right. Nobody can force you or put again that no, you should write. I don't think that would be the right approach.
Okay, like what's your take, Ashwini sir? Like, I feel writing makes you creator, not a consumer. This is my take. So how you take it, or again add on if you have to add something.
You see, a little while backwards, if you go into, say, 500-year-old history, all writing was in poetry. All storytelling was in poetry. There was no prose.
True.
There was no prose. Okay. Then we switched to prose. Now, no storytelling is in poetry.
Yes.
So, from the prose, now we're going to audiovisual.
Yes.
So the process of writing remains the same. If you have Netflix, the backbone of Netflix is good writing. Only thing that now we are using much more of a visual metaphor in the writing than we did years ago. More dialogue is happening in writing because all of us are, we the new technique of audiovisual medium is the same transition as it was from poetry to prose and from prose to poetry to AV. What I'm trying to tell you is this, that there is no conflict between Netflix and writing. They're the same thing. I wrote a book. Okay, Netflix bought it. Why? Because they liked writing. And when I see that in the audiovisual format, then it will be somebody's imagination, the director's imagination added to my imagination. So it actually takes the work forward. Okay, it's a new technique, it's a new style, it's a new format. So there is no conflict. If somebody is watching Netflix, he's welcome to watch it. If somebody wants to read, he's welcome to read. Because at the end of the day, if there are multiple platforms, there are multiple formats, then I, as a writer, I am succeeding in telling many, many more stories.
And more avenues as well too,
More revenue. It means more money. First of all.
That's a very good question. Do writers make money? That always is a
yes,
question.
Yes. Now we have the motivation. We have the motivation to write.
Yes.
Like we used to have this. You get a book published, then you take a jhola, put 20 copies into it, and then you meet somebody. You read my book. Yeah, here's a complimentary copy. I will sign it. So and look at all the today who writes poetry. You write, the only poetry. Yeah, have you written something like Mahabharata or Ramayana or something like
Kalidas, Padmavat.
Yeah. So many stories were written. Epic stories were written.
Epics. Yeah, absolutely.
Abhi, we are just using poetry to tell of emotion, not stories. अपने शेर वेर कुछ पढ़ दिए, कुछ कविताएं हो गई, बस हो गई काम का.
That I think is a transitional thing, as and how the society evolves. वो change होता जाता है. जैसे आपकी बात करने का लहजा, आपकी बात कन्वे करने का फॉर्मेट.
बात यह है कि पहले जो था लिसन नहीं थी, so you have to listen to something. So when you listen to something, Your poetry is easily remembered and easily transmitted. Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Poetry is easily transmitted. Okay. But when you had this facility of printing press, then you could write in prose also. Shelf life ho gayi na
Yes.
uski.
Yes, sir. I think we have time is over. So very interesting conversation. I hope we could hang on for a while and continue the discussion session for hours and hours, and feel like, you know, part of it, like, okay, we have a very common ground to discuss on. And the last thing is write for money. You will earlier used to say, okay, you will become one of the Chetan Bhagat, like, okay, like one of the writer we have only Chetan and Amish, but now Amazon and other platforms flooded in. You know, we have, as sir mentioned, since I mentioned, you can write. There's no gatekeepers now. You can publish a book, ebook, and people now that's easy to access. And as Haritosh mentioned very well, language is no barrier. You can publish your book even in your own native language, regional language. And as Aanandika talks about her life, like Hindi, like she believes Hindi is, but I feel Hindi is fine, but I think English is better. I feel I'm stuck at Hindi, but again, I'm learning. I joined theater. Man, she loves speaking in Hindi. And after joining theater, I started learning, enjoying Hindi more and more. So I feel we should go back to our roots. And I learned in 2 years back, go back to your roots, have strong foundation. When you have strong foundation, you can build a building. So overall, a great.
I will just make a point here. The literature available in the last 50 years used by Indians writing in regional language is much more richer than all the literature produced by Indians writing in English. Whether you take Hindi, Bengali, Tamil, Malayalam, Gujarati, whatever, even Punjabi or Gujarati, the literature produced in these languages at this regional and sub-regional level is richer than all the literature produced by the Indian writers writing in English. This includes people like Khushwant Singh and Shobha Days and Chetan Bhagats and even, like I said, Naipaul. Because the problem is that we are not reading our own language. Rahul Sharma की आप किताब पढ़िए travelogues पे. It's fabulous, fabulous.
Back to Hindi. I will read Hindi books and yeah.
And the revenue, you know, the highest readership किस language में है in the entire country. The highest leadership is in Hindi. And you know where it is from? Number one readership in the country is from Bihar. And the least number of books are purchased in Bihar. The reason is the readership is very, very strong. It's got a very broad base, but the purchasing power is very low. So people don't buy books, they read them, they borrow from libraries. Angrezi mein iska ulta hai. What happens is the Angrezi walas have more purchasing power. So
that's why this elitist thing about the language. Why are we not? I mean, our Hindi books. If I see my daughter, she's in class 8 and she's still studying Eidgah by Munshi Premchandji, and that's not the only thing Munshi Premchandji has written. Why are we so conservative about, you know, exploring our own authors and their work? Even if we are doing Munshi Premchandji, मैंने भी स्कूल में ईदगाह ही पढ़ी थी, मैंने हामिद का चिमटा पढ़ा था, ये लोग भी आज वही पढ़ रहे हैं. So
इसका कारण बहुत साफ है. The reason is very simple. We do not have the capability to read our own mother tongue.
Unfortunately,
if you read,
it's
I
necessary.
feel only way is join theater. Like theater is keeping the Hindi alive. Hindi theaters in the India, they are keeping the theater, the Hindi language or the regional language alive. So that's the only easy way to enroll yourself in theater. That's what I feel. Where you read a lot of the Manto and Premchand and other authors, Hisam Sani, and you say, oh my God, मैंने कुछ पढ़ा ही नहीं अभी तक. So last take.
I was telling my son ऐसे ही बैठे थे, खाना खा रहे थे, तो मैंने उनको रहीम का एक दोहा, कुछ ऐसी बात हुई तो मैंने कहा रहीम, मैंने कहा ऐसे नहीं कि बड़े हुए तो क्या हुए, जैसे यू नो, एंड ही टर्न्स अराउंड एंड टेल्स मी, पापा स्पीक इन हिंदी ना, तो आई सेड फाइन। अच्छा, इसी तरह से मैं किसी के साथ, मैंने कहा आपको लानतें पड़े, तो कहते लाते पड़े, how can you read Premchand if you do not have a working knowledge of Urdu? How can you read any other author, for example Dwivedi, उनके एसेस पढ़ेंगे अगर आप, तो अगर आपको मतलब अच्छे हिंदी शब्दों का बिल्कुल ज्ञान नहीं है,
बट सर फिर ये तो फिर वो राउंड अबाउट ही है ना,
I feel we time is over, so we need to cut the conversation. Just
neither read Hindi, neither we can read English.
One just last statement from Harito, then we will hand over the stage to Ashmit. Yes, Haritosh ji.
No, I think I agree to what Ashwini sir and Aanandika said. ना हमें हिंदी पे बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ने की जरूरत है, हिंदी नहीं सारे रीजनल लैंग्वेज, क्योंकि जब तक हम अपनी भाषा अपनी संस्कृति को नहीं बढ़ाएंगे, नहीं प्रचार करेंगे, तब तक आई थिंक हम इवन वी कांट लर्न इंग्लिश बेटर। सो आई थिंक हमें वापस जाने की जरूरत है कि हम कम से कम हिंदी में पहले अध्ययन करें, फिर उसका प्रचार प्रसार करें, और शायद अगर हो सके तो उसमें लिखना शुरू करें। सो पूरी तरह से सहमत हूँ सर।
I write a weekly column in Hindi in Junks of Light, appears every fortnight.
So please do share link with me.
Just to add, sorry Rahul, just to add, because हम लोग भी कोशिश कर रहे हैं, राहुल जी भी उसका पार्ट है कि हम लोग इवन टोस्ट मास्टर में भी हिंदी का प्रचार प्रसार कर रहे हैं। इस पार्ट नहीं था, बट हमारे यहाँ भी हमने हिंदी के करीब 15-20 क्लब पूरे दुनिया में बनाने शुरू किए, सिर्फ इसी मिशन से कि हिंदी का हम आगे बढ़ाएं, हिंदी को आगे बढ़ाएं। लोग हिंदी में बोलने में सहज महसूस नहीं करते, दे आर नॉट कंफर्टेबल स्पीकिंग इन हिंदी, सो नो टू मेक देम अवेयर कि हाँ हिंदी में भी आप कर सकते हैं, ऐसा कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। तो बट sorry Rahul ji,
just one thing that I would want to add, because I feel very strongly about this thing, and 2-3 बार मैंने ये बात सुनी, and I do have to make this point that there is no going back to the roots. आप root से ही stem हुए हैं, so you growing that way, and there's no comparison between Hindi and English. The only thing that has to come is ये जो आप एक झिझक महसूस करते हैं हिंदी बोलने से, आपको कहीं ये समझ में आपकी बैठा हुआ है, एंड पुश्तैनी समझ में बैठा हुआ है कि हिंदी बोलना मतलब आप कहीं किसी दर्जे पे कम है. That has to be, and I think people like you are at an absolutely fantastic position to stop that from happening. Not only with your children, but with the reach that you have using social media or anything, and primarily with yourself. When you're so vocal, you should be taking lead in telling everybody the fact that मैं हिंदी बोलता हूँ और मैं जौनपुर से हूँ, तो मेरा ये एक्सेंट भी है और मेरी ये भाषा भी है. आई थिंक ये एक चीज हिंदी से रिलेटेड हर आदमी फील करता है कि जैसे सर भी अभी बोल रहे थे that his daughter-in-law often says that I don't get you. So we do not have that, our tongue and our jaws and our teeth do not work in the way to give those pronunciations. हमारी इंग्लिश हिंदी से रूट होती है, हम इंग्लिश से रूट नहीं होते हैं. So I'm very sorry if I
think this conversation needs to be shared across. I will try to share this conversation especially, and I feel we have a storytelling maybe in Hindi and English for the kids from gavaKsh NGO. So let's head over to that next session, and let me invite Ashmit, our MC. Waiting for 10 minutes. क्या हो गया भाई? ये तो so please Ashmit आ जाओ stage को लीजिए, and we have Anil, Ashmit. Yeah, thank you. We have great conversation.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you.
So guys, it was really an inspiring conversation, and how our panelists communicated how language and understanding and experiences matter in writing. So I think a lot of people who are aspiring writers or wanted to write, or who are in the process of becoming a writer, or are just interested in this, they would find great help in this. So I think it was a really great session, and I think I specifically got quite inspired by this session, so I scribbled something, so I'm just sharing it with you guys, and all your feedbacks would be highly appreciated. So just, it's here. When nothing seems to go right, when there's some ephemeral of light, The moment you start losing your sight, someone will show up to show you your real might. Maintain your ethnicity, attain your authenticity, and you will definitely learn the sorcery. While going through the darkness, vitality of light uprises. Happiness is no significant without certain miseries. So this is what I wrote.
Wow.
And
Very
thank you.
nice.
Thank you so much.